Good morning. Good morning. We are getting ready to start our monthly webinar series for LT Senior Services. This month, we are talking about how to pay for retirement living. So we are really excited about the topic. We have almost 100 people who have signed up for the webinar today. We have a great panel of people who are going to be able to really explain from different perspectives how to consider paying for retirement living. So we are so excited to have you here today. My name is Cindy Cummings. I am one of the founders of LT Senior Services. I'm a local realtor and I work for Realty Austin, and I have an ancillary business called Turnkey Transitions, where we help people move from their home to communities. And we're just super excited to have you all here today. Our format is that we're going to first introduce some other people of LT Senior Services, our members. We have about 40 members of LT Senior Services. We'll have them come in and say hello, and then we'll talk about some upcoming events. And then next we'll introduce our panelists and we'll get right into the topic for the day. One of the reminders is, as you look towards the very bottom, you're going to see both a chat and a question and answer area. If you have any questions, if you have anything you want to chat to us about, you can put those in there. Natalie will be monitoring those for us, and she'll be able to let us know that there's somebody there with their hand raised asking a question. So feel free to use those chats to ask questions, and we will ask the panelists for you. So without further ado, let me see if there's any members of LT Senior Services out there. I think that Morgan, you might be here from the library. Come on in, say hello. And I'm just looking at Natalie. Do you know if Morgan is going to come in? Oh, here she is. It takes a little bit for all this technology. Although we've been doing it for what, a year and a half now, we are getting a little bit better at it. Hey, Morgan.
Hi, Cindy. Good morning, everybody.
Tell us what's going on at the library.
So I'm Morgan McMillan, the director of the library. We are open 6 days a week, and yes, you can come into the building, but we still offer curbside service. I think especially right now, scariness of the world, know that we will bring you your books outside. You don't need to come in the library. We can recommend titles. We have a recommended read service. Just call us and say, hey, I'd like 5 new historical fiction novels. Great, we'll put them on hold and bring them to you. So we still do virtual programs, story times, and technology help. And then our other big news was last week, we opened a bookstore in the library. So we are taking donations again, and our awesome Friends of the Library volunteers have opened a store that has hundreds, thousands of titles, $1 for a paperback, $2 for a hardback. So come on in, come see us.
Excellent. So is that right? You have your own little store right within the library? Is it its own little room? Yes. Or how did you set it up? Yeah.
Its own little room. If you're familiar with the library, it used to be our teen room. So kind of just straight shot in, glass walls around the room, but we'll help you find the space if you come on in the library. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Morgan. Well, we love the library. We appreciate your support for everything. You guys have been such a great supporter. We appreciate it. And hopefully soon we'll be in person again, right?
That would be great.
We were talking about how fun it was that the library used to be in the high school when we first moved here 20 years ago. So you guys have come a far way, and there's so many people who really appreciate the library, and they spend quite a bit of time there, both socially and interacting with other people. So thank you. Thank you for being
Thanks for saying that, Cindy. Thanks.
We'll see you next time. All right. Anybody else from LT Senior Services that would like to come on and say, hey? Just looking for any chats or any question and answer from people who are coming on.
Ray Daniels coming in.
Oh, great. Hey, Ray. I can see you're trying to come on in.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you. What do you got, sir? What's going on with Ray Daniel?
Well, I'm sorry you can't see me. I guess I'm not that good with an iPhone, but
anyhow, no worries.
Anyhow, I'm Ray Daniel with Fairway Independent Mortgage. I'm a reverse mortgage specialist, and I just wanted all the seniors to know that this week is the best week of 2021 in terms of maximizing the amount of money you can gain access to in your home's equity. That's because rates are at all-time lows and property values have skyrocketed to the point where people can't even believe how much money their home is worth. I just closed on my own personal reverse mortgage last week, and my appraisal came in over 100,000 higher than even I thought it was going to come in. So that means that property values are such that you can refinance a current mortgage, you can sell your house for lots of money, take half of that money and go buy a brand new house. All these options are available through the FHA HECM for purchase and or HECM for refinance program. So Ray Daniel, Fairway Independent Mortgage, right here in Lakeway, 1202 Lakeway Drive. So come and see me.
All right, Ray, thanks for popping in and saying hello. So LT Senior Services is designed as a Lake Travis resource to serve and engage aging adults and their families in the community. You probably are wondering what we're doing. Well, one of the things that we do is educational events, and educational events include webinars such as this, but we also have some upcoming events. And one of them is our Aging Well Expo, and it's going to be taking place on September 27th. We have an excellent sponsor. We're so excited. Alzheimer's Texas is our sponsor of the event. And our format is for that is we have speakers in one room, and then we've got exhibitors in another room. We have amazing exhibitors. We're so excited. We're going to push through. I mean, I think even with COVID the way that it is right now, we're still going to hold the event, and we will follow CDC requirements for events. And we're just looking forward to seeing everybody. We haven't had a live event since the very beginning of COVID. So this was going to be our big splash back into the community, and we're still going to hold the event. So we hope that you will come. You can register for the event at our website. Our speakers are going to include people who will be talking about Medicare and the changes for 2020. We have secrets of aging well, technology and how to use it in the household to assist you. In addition, after the Aging Well Expo, we're going to have a workforce fair. So we're going to have employers who are looking for employees. You can be any age, but we were specifically doing it to help people who are older look for jobs in the local area. So we do have some employers who are going to be there. So we hope that you will come. That is free. We have an amazing lunch that's going to be provided by Arbor Terrace. Amazing door prizes, goodie bags. I mean, anything you can think of. So we're really excited for that event. Fingers crossed that it all works out okay. So without further ado, I think we'll go ahead and bring in our panelists. Panelists, if you'll come in, and I'm going to go ahead and just start reading your bios for everybody. So let's see, our first one is Landria Page, and Landria is with Belmont Village. Hey, Landria, with Lakeway. She received her master's in health administration, MHA, and graduate certificate as a licensed nursing facility administrator from Texas State University in 2014, and her bachelor's in biomedical science from Grand Valley State College in 2011. Landria is a dedicated and enthusiastic professional with over 14 years experience in geriatric communities. She joined Belmont Village as a community relations associate in November of 2017. So you've been there from the very beginning. I can't believe, was 2017 in Lakeway or was that in Bee Cave?
We opened technically in 18, but I started to open the building.
Oh, you did. It just seems like yesterday.
I know.
And here we are. Here we are a couple years later. Well, we're so glad that you're here on the panel, and we're really interested to hear from your perspective some ideas about how to pay for retirement living. So Chantel is with Edward Jones. And as an Edward Jones financial advisor, she believes it's important to invest your time in understanding what's important to you. And she believes your financial health is as important as your physical health by creating a strategy and understanding the level of risk you're comfortable accepting when investing. We can partner together to work towards reaching your long-term goals. She began her career in the financial industry, interning for Norwest Financial, now Wells Fargo, while in college 25 years ago. She proceeded to work as a broker for Hibernian Bank in Louisiana after graduation. She left the financial industry in 2003 to work for Johnson & Johnson, and she spent about 10 years in the pharmaceutical biotech industry before returning to her financial roots. I bet that was interesting. Giving back to the community is extremely important to her. She's a member of the current of Lakeway Church, a member of Lakeway Church Women's Ministry, a volunteer for mobile meals during or for the Lions Club, members of Lake Travis Senior Services, and former member of the National Charity League and Young Men's Service League. Her and her husband have been married for 24 years. They've got 2 kids. And she says, whether you're planning for retirement, living in retirement, saving for college, running a business, or just trying to protect the financial future of the ones you care for most, we will work together to develop a complete, tailored strategy to help you achieve your financial goals. And that's Chantel. Okay, John Brown is a certified senior advisor. He began his career in 1979 when he went to work in the pharmaceutical retail drugstore business. He spent 36 years with one company and had the opportunity to learn and grow just as Central Texas and Austin area continue to expand. He and his wife have been committed to staying in the Central Texas area. I know it's because you have a grandbaby now, John, but you say here because of your kids, but the kids have a grandbaby. So, that's how it all works, right? He is a community leader, local volunteer, serving people has always been a passion. He's a caregiver for his mother as she progresses through the later stages of dementia. And he knows firsthand the challenges facing families during these difficult transitions. So he's committed himself to helping seniors through transitions, offering education, resources, and options with daily living, offering dignity and passion to do what's best for them. Oasis Senior Advisors help seniors live their best life wherever home may be, and they proudly offer a free senior living service for individuals across Central Texas. So those are our speakers for today. And I'm feeling lonely, so everybody come on in so I can see y'all. There we go. Here's Landria.
Chantel is having video trouble.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
So I suggested she log off and log back in and see if that does it.
Yeah, that's perfect. And Landry is there. Hey, John, you want to come on in so we can see your pretty face?
Yeah, absolutely. Mine is saying that I'm waiting for the host.
That's what mine's saying too.
Oh, interesting. Waiting for the host. Okay, let me see.
It's saying
Hold,
the host.
please. Hold, please. Ask to start video. Let's see. Ask to start
There
video.
we are.
Awesome. So we're trying to do something fancy and we made you all go away. Look at everybody. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, this is quite a hefty topic and one that's really important for people to be able to understand their options for paying for senior living, senior communities in now and in the future. John, we thought we'd start with you since you are definitely an expert in the senior living community, area. And if you could just tell us a little bit about senior living communities. And then I think you also had a slide that you wanted to share with us. So John, we're going to have you go ahead and start off our topic for today.
Sure. So I'm going to start with a different slide. I did find one about the different types of senior living.
Perfect.
I'm going to share that. Can you see that?
So far, yeah, this is type of senior living, life plan, nursing, etc. You're good.
So just so everybody understands, there is a multitude of different types of senior living, from senior apartments to independent living, where you get a lot of social stimulation and you get activities and meals and, light housekeeping, to assisted living, type A, which is a lower level of care, where, they can help you with activities of daily living, like dressing, bathing, transferring, incontinence. Then you go to a higher level of assisted living. It's a type B. Those are for people who really have a lot of ambulation or transferring issues, where they may need help actually getting out of a building in case of a fire. You also have memory care, which is a structured environment for those people with dementia. It's a much more, usually a much smaller setting with a lot more eyes to help people with dementia or Alzheimer's. Of course, you have skilled nursing, which is, the nursing home or skilled nursing for rehab. You also have what's called a CCRC or life plan community. So that's an all-inclusive community where they're basically promising to take care of you for life. And then, of course, from there, you go on to the more medical side of acute rehab and hospitalization. So those are all the different types of senior living that are out there. I changed the slide. I don't know if everybody can see the slide.
Well, we see the types of senior living. We don't see the other slide that you had shown us before.
Okay, so let me stop share and share.
Look at us. We are just becoming experts at this. I see a future. Zoom presenters.
All right. So I guess, the question that Cindy, you were saying to start off with is, what are some of the types of ways to pay for a senior living?
Mhm.
And so I just have this little graphic right here that shows, some of the ways are VA benefits, private paying, selling their home, long-term care insurance, reverse mortgage, and of course, Medicaid versus Medicare. And then I think you wanted to start with Medicare. Is that correct, Cindy?
Yeah, just tell us the difference between the different senior living communities that you just described, and would Medicare or Medicaid pay for any of those?
Okay, so let's go back. Sorry, give me just 1 second.
No problem.
Left it on that one. And
We're making you work so hard. We're just sitting here.
no, you're good. Okay, so the biggie is what Medicare covers. So everything does start with Medicare. So Medicare takes care of your medical side, and that is, of course, your doctor visits, your hospitalization, things like that. Rehab stays are covered, your durable medical equipment and things like that. What is not covered by Medicare is what's called the activities of daily living. And that's the dressing, the bathing, the transferring, the incontinence, meals, meal prep, transportation, med management, and dementia or Alzheimer's. They don't consider those to be medical. They consider those to be like I said, the activities of daily living. So Medicare doesn't cover that long term. They cover it when you're in a rehab, a skilled nursing, or a hospital setting. But the reason they're covering it there is because you're there for a treatment for a medical condition. And so when someone has a life event or a health event, that's where you have to start thinking about the future and what is, the best route and what is the next step. And that's something that we really spend a lot of time with families, helping them navigate. Do you need independent living, assisted living, or memory care? Does your loved one, need more rehab and skilled nursing, and what's covered and what's not? So, I mean, it's a big spectrum when you say, retirement living, just because you've got so many different types of communities, and then they're also different. No one community is the same for the most part. They all have their own personalities. They all have their own care. And so you've got that. And then you've got what's covered by Medicare and what's not covered by Medicare.
It sounds a little complicated. So it sounds like you might need somebody to help guide you through this. Is this something that your company will do, help people to determine?
Yeah, absolutely. So if it's, if we need to talk about skilled nursing and doing a rehab stay, we'll help with that. If it's time to start talking about different types of senior living, we'll help with that. Or if you want to stay in your home and you're looking for, okay, what do I need to be able to take care of, my spouse or my loved one at home? What does that look like? Yeah, we'll be glad to help with all those things.
Excellent. Well, Chantel, I'm going to switch gears and ask you a couple questions. And John, if you'll just have that slide go away when you get a chance. Chantel, what is the likelihood that I will actually need some sort of assistance for health care, long-term care costs? How many people actually need help paying for those kinds of things? Oh, sure, I'm mute.
I'm muted. So here I am. Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so great question. And the statistics, are pretty staggering when you take a look at it. So, and to John's point, as he just said, long-term care costs consist of not only living in a retirement community or assisted living facility, but it's also adult daycare, nursing home, home health care, which, to his point, a lot of times Medicare doesn't cover. So to put things in perspective, the likelihood of needing some sort of long-term care insurance funding is much higher than any other form of insurance that we pay for. So if you look at, we all have homeowners insurance, we all have car insurance, we all have health insurance. There's about a 1 in 1,200 chance that we will actually need to utilize our homeowner's insurance for a major expense. About 1 in 350 chance we're actually going to need to use our car insurance. But according to the Department of Human and Health Services, about 1 in 3 individuals over the age of 65 will spend some time in a nursing home in their life.
Wow, that is staggering.
It's pretty staggering when you look at those when you look at those statistics. And just to kind of give you another little, I'm a geek out a little bit on statistics, but 30% of those folks over the age of 65 that do end up in some type of nursing home or long-term care facility stay between 1 and 3 years, and 20% typically stay 5 years or longer. So pretty significant numbers there as to the likelihood of actually needing some sort of funding or insurance to help pay for those costs in retirement.
Well, before we got on, we were talking about how the long-term care insurance has changed.
Yes.
And I know, I don't know very many people who have long-term care insurance. I'll just say that. So my question to you earlier was, at what age is it a good time to purchase long-term care insurance? And tell us a little bit about some of those changes that have made it better for consumers.
Yes, absolutely. And actually long-term care has been on the top of a lot of people's minds just over the last year and a half, and what we've been through with illness and people aging. So there's actually several different ways that I work with my clients and partner with them on because everybody's got an individualized situation. You know, some folks have experience with their parents or their grandparents having to help them with long-term care. I have a personal experience where my mother-in-law, who at the age of 54 had a massive stroke, cerebral hemorrhage, did not have long-term care, 5 years, and she was paralyzed on the left side of her body for the rest of her life. She lived that way for about 30 years. And for the first 6 years, her husband was her primary caregiver, and then he passed away. So the burden fell on the children. And it wasn't a burden. It was actually our greatest joy to be able to take care of her, but it got to a point where we couldn't, right? And so, you know, if we would have been protected in some way, whether it's self-funding or long-term care insurance, or even products like life insurance with a chronic care rider. Those things just really help with the financial burden of taking care of someone who has had an unfortunate life event. So to answer your question, Cindy, long-term care used to be, if you don't use it, you lose it. Right. And it was very expensive. Premiums continue to go up every year. And it just, for some folks, became completely unaffordable. And then a lot of folks, you know, lived their life very healthy and never used their long-term care. So they basically lost all of the premiums that they paid into those policies. So now long-term care has really evolved, long-term care insurance, where it's more of a hybrid type model. And there's 2 types, depending on truly what's in the best interest of the person that is sitting across the desk from me, or on a Zoom, or on a phone call. So hybrid long-term care basically has 3 buckets. There's a long-term care component that you pay into, and basically gives you a pretty good leverage on a bucket of money of what you can use for long-term care. And in order to qualify for utilization, to John's point, you have to not be able to perform 2 of the 6 activities of daily living. So that's one bucket. A second bucket is, let's say you pay in $50,000 for this policy and you never use it. And at the age of 90, your children or you decide, you know what, I'm never going to use this policy. I want to just go ahead and cash out. You will get 70% of your premiums back instead of losing everything. And then the third bucket is a life insurance component. So you pay for your long-term care. If you live a very healthy life, go on to become an angel and never use the policy, the amount of money that you paid in for the policy will actually go to your beneficiaries as a death benefit. So that's the hybrid long-term care policy. There's also another, and that's what we recommend between the ages of 55 and 75 years of age, because you're healthier. You know, insurance premiums tend to be lower. Some folks might still be working to help pay the premiums. And then on the other side, there's a life insurance product that we can actually insure you up until the age of 80. And then we put a chronic care that's included in the policy rider for events like long-term care where you're unable to perform 2 of the 6 activities of daily living. So there's a couple of different ways to attack helping to fund living in retirement and protect yourself from a long-term care event.
That's great information. It's good to hear that the financial institutions are, offering some alternatives too, because the consumers aren't biting, what they had offered before, before what I had heard was long-term care insurance was just extremely expensive and
And
just
it
cost
was.
prohibitive.
Yeah.
Landry, I was going to ask you a question. This isn't something that we had talked about, but your job working at Belmont, do you have an opportunity and can you help people read their policies? Because I've heard before where people have these long-term care policies, but they just don't even know what they have. Is that something that you can help consumers with to understand better what they have and how it might be able to be used at a community such as Belmont?
So generally speaking, for the long-term care, while we see a lot of policies, we always encourage the family to reach out to their financial advisor, because they're the ones that really understand the language, everything that's in the policy, to make sure that they're truly optimizing everything. We can always speak, from the community standpoint. There is criteria with the long-term care that, for instance, they'll ask about the licensure. Most policies are only covered in the assisted living or the skilled nursing settings. And then also giving them the information about what that, kind of the initial process, that once they initiate a claim, how that works, that they'll reach out to the community. But again, we always ask them to speak with their advisor, because they're really the ones that know the in and outs.
That makes sense. So when we think about the cost for communities, Landria, why are some communities a certain price and other communities are different prices? Can you kind of tell us, what the offerings might be that would make it be that the one community might charge $5,000, one might charge $10,000, I guess. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so there's a huge range in terms of the cost for different communities, and a lot of it really is determined by the level of support, such as the care that they can provide and or continue to provide. So generally speaking, when you look at, say, like true independent living communities, you will see that lower price point, because it's really, you have the 55 and above community, but as that individual is aging in place and needs additional care, that's when they would be looking at a licensed community such as an assisted living. And kind of depending on the number of activities of daily living, that's where you're kind of deciding between the assisted living and whether a skilled nursing community is really of need at that time. So that's really where you see that variation in cost. So you'd start at independent really on the lower end of the monthly cost, and then you would graduate to assisted living, more the memory care, that's going to be a higher cost. So you're kind of graduating based on that care is where you're really going to see the additional cost. And then of course you have this CCRCs, the continuing care retirement communities, where kind of John mentioned earlier, it's an all-inclusive, as different cares needed, that's where you're going to see the additional cost. And I'm sure John can also share a lot on this topic.
So one person described it to me as the more hands-on that you need for your body, for your person, that the cost normally goes up. So if you don't need help bathing, dressing, and things like that, then your costs are lower. But as you need additional physical care, that's really where you can see a big increase in cost. Would you agree with that, John, that that's likely?
Yeah, I mean, yes, unfortunately, yes and no. So there are communities that are all inclusive pricing with care. And there is also, depending on your specific scenario, maybe it is time to consider a memory care, because most memory care is all inclusive if somebody has a dementia diagnosis or something like that. So there's always ways to navigate it. So what we always recommend to family is have a budget, a monthly budget, and then we can always figure that out from that point. But yes, it is, as you age and as the care increases, the care costs will go up, and that is a cost on top of your regular room rate or apartment rate. So if you're in a 2-bedroom apartment and you need no care, it's this price. And then as that care starts coming in, that's when ultimately, you've got to make sure you're within that budget. And so we're really always trying to make sure the family has, before they do anything, A, have a budget, B, have a plan, and then know your care. If we know you've got complex medical conditions or you've got certain diagnosis, we can kind of say, okay, this is what you need to be looking for down the road. So it is really all about having a plan.
Mhm.
Well, and Cindy, if I could add to that, to John's point, he's absolutely right. And working with my clients too, in creating the plan, we have this amazing, pretty intricate software where we can stress test a portfolio, right? So what we do is, from a budgeting perspective, we look at discretionary income and necessary income, and we try to fill the necessary income bucket with guaranteed income. And I put quotes. So on John's slide earlier, where he talked about, VA benefits, long-term care, private savings, do we sell our house? Do we do a reverse mortgage? Medicaid, what will Medicaid, Medicare pay for? I would also add to that, any pensions, Social Security. We look at what those guaranteed sources of income are going to cover from a necessary perspective. And then we look at the portfolio that's been built over the years, and then we take discretionary income off of that. So, and then we may have a portfolio built for growth. But what we also do is, when we're looking at these long-term care and life insurance, chronic care rider products, and even budgets, is we build in inflation, right? Everybody knows right now we're experiencing pretty tremendous inflation in the housing market. To Ray's point earlier, highest appraisal value he's ever seen in houses. Cindy, I'm sure you're seeing it from a realtor perspective. We're seeing it on, cost of goods and groceries and cars and all of those things. So it's important what your need is today as you sit as a 55 or 60 or 65-year-old. 10 years from now, the likelihood you're going to need more is not guaranteed, but at high probability. So we take everyone's individual financial puzzle and we build in inflation to that. And we stress test the portfolio to see, what if when I'm 80 or that a long-term care event happens, or what if I'm 60 now and in 5 years a long-term care event happens? Can I afford to stay and age gracefully in place? And that's my favorite part of my job, is making that happen. So.
All right. Let's see, John, let me ask this question. What medical services can assisted living provide? And is there additional costs, or is this covered by insurance? Actually, that was for Landria. I should let her answer that.
Let Landry go.
So assisted living is arranged, so it can start as simple as, the first things that we usually see is medication management. So it can range from simple things like, it's just making sure you're safely taking it, or, to the point where we're actually managing those medications. We also will provide as early as standby shower assistance. And then as you're as John kind of said, graduating the additional care is as you need additional support with the activities of daily living, such as dressing, grooming, and showering, we're able to tier those on, whether it's standby, someone there, as needed basis, or if you're needing one person assistance or 2 people to assist. So you can tier those services on. We also can provide continence management and also cognitive support. At ours, we have Circle of Friends, so you're getting that daily cognitive support. Some communities you may see just having that in the memory care setting.
And that's all going to be covered private pay, and there's a potential that it could be paid for from your long-term care insurance.
Correct.
Right.
It's really, and that's maybe Chantel can speak more on that, and both John. I mean, they see a lot of the policies, but a lot of the policies depend on certain numbers of activities of daily living or cognition, which will help in terms of the qualifications.
Before the policy will kick in, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Yeah, I know there's a whole nuance to getting the policy to kick in, and there's strategies to have as little out-of-pocket money as possible before they start to take effect. I know it's just like any other kind of policy. There could be wait periods and things like that that make it a little bit more complicated. Well, John, you go on to say that there's between 50 and 70% of the people over 65 will require fairly significant long-term care services at some point, and Chantel also confirmed that. When you're looking at the different kinds of assistance, such as eating, dressing, bathing, and possibly even a higher level of care, what are some other options for paying for this kind of care? So specifically, we want to talk about veterans aid and attendance.
Yeah, so there is a benefit. I was going to try to grab the flyer, but there is a benefit. It's called VA aid and attendance. If you or are a spouse, or if you are a veteran, there is during active, let me make sure I word this right. If you were active duty during actual wartime, then they do pay out a monthly benefit. It is their version of a long-term care policy. So a veteran would receive approximately $1,930 a month. A spouse would receive approximately $1,200 a month, helping them pay for that care. That care could be used at home with home care, or it could be used in an assisted living community. If both of them needs care, it could go all the way up to about $2,200. So, you know, that's an awesome benefit for all of our veterans that we don't use. On average, veterans who use VA aid and attendance is less than 5%. So,
oh my gosh.
yeah, and it's free money, but you know, again, you've earned it for your service, and we appreciate that. And that's how, you know, they pay you back, by helping you with that long-term care. There are some, like any government program, there are some stipulations on income and on, you know, the way that they calculate whether or not you qualify. So one thing we always recommend is families often will have their, you know, power of attorney and their HIPAA release and their medical power of attorney and their wills and all that. We really recommend you, if you're over the age of 70, start to consider to put all your assets in a trust. That way, if you ever do need to navigate Medicaid or VA, you're going to qualify. Once it's in a trust, then that's basically saying, I've left this for my heirs. I have no intentions of spending it. And so that then Medicare and Medicaid and the VA then does not count that as your income.
You really have to use a professional who knows what they're doing to help you get qualified for this. I've heard of some people who thought that they were going to get it and they didn't. So some of the people that you would use would be, there's some attorneys, is that right? That you can help get qualified?
So what we do is we'll sit down, we're going to figure out, first of all, do you medically qualify? This is the same for VA or Medicaid. Do you medically qualify? Then number two, do you financially qualify? Okay, if you do, great. Here's a nonprofit, or here's the fastest way to get it done. If you don't, because of too much income or something like that, then we're going to look at it and try to find out what's the best option, whether that's using a nonprofit, going down to your local VA office, or, you know, you've got assets that need to be protected. We need to bring in an elder attorney or a VA attorney. I strongly, and I don't know, Landry, if you disagree with this, but I strongly recommend a family never fill out an application for VA aid and attendance. It's just one dot in the wrong place, one check mark, and it's going to get rejected and you're never going to get the funds. Most of the people we recommend, whether it be an attorney, a nonprofit, or a VA organization, they're going to have it reviewed by an attorney before they submit it. So you really don't want to get rejected on that first pass. Do you agree, Landria?
Yeah.
I've seen the applications and it's pretty daunting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, John.
Well, that is
correct.
That is great feedback. And I do think that one of the things to consider is that there is a limitation on your income. You know, so if your income is too high, that's one of the reasons why people don't choose to go down that path, but you can be very creative and you can move things around. And
yeah, going back to Chantel, I mean, you have to have a plan and you have to have a path. So I've had families that have had long-term care insurance, were a veteran, and, you know, had assets. And it's like, okay, well, let's come up with a plan. So we basically did. We came up with a plan that we're going to first use the long-term care insurance until it's all used up. Then we're going to do the VA. Then we're going to, you know, you just have to have a plan. And the goal is always to protect those assets, you know, for the heirs, whenever possible, of course.
All right. Gosh, guys, I'm reading through all these questions that I have. I feel like I've asked them all, and we have 14 chats. So let me just see what I got in the chat box and just see what kind of questions we have. And then if there's anything you guys want to add to what we've talked about, please, you know, just go ahead and let me know that. If you got the participants, if you'll go ahead and type in your information in the chat box, so everybody will have that, your phone number, the company name, and all that kind of good stuff. I have a question here. One issue with long-term care policies are the premiums which keep increasing, and once you're in the policy, you can't get out without losing your investment. Is that still an issue? Great question.
Yeah, really good question. So I'll take that one if that's okay.
Great, yes.
So with traditional long-term care insurance, yes, that absolutely was the case. Premiums kept increasing based on actuarial methods that these companies use. And then, yeah, you couldn't really get out of it because if you canceled your policy, you didn't get any of your money back. So the new hybrid long-term care policies that are out, and they're not extremely new, but they're on the newer side, basically have those three buckets that we talked about earlier. So you have the bucket for long-term care. And basically how I run illustrations and scenarios for clients, again, are based on what kind of income they have guaranteed, right? And what will they need to supplement for any inflationary measures if we strip out, you know, things from the current budget that they wouldn't have to pay for based on the new budget in a long-term care facility, right? And then we solve for that. So basically you have the long-term care bucket. Once you pay for it, we usually do a 10 pay, so a 10-year pay, or you can do a lump sum premium. Once you pay for it, you've got it in place. If you decide 5 years later you don't want the policy anymore, you can actually cancel the policy and get 70% of the premium that you paid back. Or if you never use the policy, let's say you paid in $50,000 for this hybrid long-term care policy. If you never use the policy, that $50,000 that you paid in to buy long-term care, that $50,000 will go to your beneficiary in the form of life insurance.
So it has changed, and thank
It has
goodness,
changed.
because really we do want people to be encouraged to get long-term care insurance so that they don't lose all of their assets.
Absolutely.
Of one.
Absolutely. It's important to protect what you've worked so hard for.
Somebody here is saying that they're skeptical of the Veterans Aid and Assistance. Very difficult to get. I tried for years to get it for my mom and I never got it. You need almost no income and they take forever to respond. Yeah, I'm sorry. We have seen that too. If you go through the process, you can actually apply and then reapply one time, I think. And then do you have to wait 18 months before you can apply again?
If you receive a denial, you have to wait 12. So, I mean, the biggie, if you need care, if you need any help with dressing, bathing, transferring, or incontinence, you should qualify. Again, it goes back to that. It goes back to how are the assets and where are they? I mean, there are stipulations, you know, you can't have multiple homes. Your primary care, your primary residence can't be over so many, you know, like it can't be like a 100-acre ranch, you know, there's certain types of requirements. That's why I go back to, if you're somebody who was a veteran and you think you're going to start or you're going to need care in the future, I would really talk to your attorney about setting up a trust of your will. Because once it's in a trust, then all that doesn't count. All that counts then is just your monthly Social Security.
Okay,
So
well, that's fairly easy to do.
You know,
Yeah.
what we usually find is, yes, some families really struggle with it because the finances are just, you know, there's just all over the place. And if it's not all bundled nice and neat, then the VA is going to reject everything.
Mhm.
Same with Medicare.
Yeah. Can you convert an older long-term care policy to a newer hybrid policy without penalty? I guess you can't answer that because it really just depends on that policy. Yeah.
That was going to be my exact answer. We'd have to review the policy to see if it could be converted. Yeah.
Well, Chantel, is that something that people could reach out to you about to review their old policies so they could determine if they need to consider? And do you You sell long-term care insurance, is that
Yes.
right? Okay,
Yes.
so you are aware of all those. Okay, let me go to the question and answers. What if you want to stay in your own home when you do need to start paying for long-term care? With what insurance group, or how do you know what group will be able to say 2 or 3 times a week? So basically, somebody wants to stay home and they want care to come into the home. Can a long-term care insurance policy work for that?
You want me to take this one?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so it depends on the type of the policy that, if so, yes, to answer your question, depending on the type of policy, because some policies reimburse or pay based on reimbursement. So the actual facility would have to submit medical information for reimbursement to the facility. But some policies also allow for indemnity reimbursement. So basically what indemnity reimbursement means is that as long as you have gotten a letter from a physician saying that you're either cognitively impaired or unable to perform 2 of the 6 activities of daily living, there could be a bucket of money available, a maximum monthly benefit that you could receive on a monthly basis. You can decide how much you need. The maximum might be $6,000 or $7,000 a month. You might say, I only need 3,000 of it. You can, and $3,000 would be automatically transferred to your bank account every month. So you could pay for home health aides or someone to come in and help bathe or someone to, so it just really depends on the policy type that you're interested in. And that's where you would kind of be directed. So.
Okay, so they would sit down with you and just say, hey, my goal is to stay home. I want to have somebody come in. What policy would be the
Yeah,
best?
this is what's
policy
most
then?
important to me. How can I best benefit from this?
Okay.
Yep.
Here's another question. This is for Chantel. If you take the option where you pay for hybrid plan over 10 years, can premiums still increase over the 10-year period?
So on the hybrid policies, no. It's a set premium payment for 10 years and then you are done paying.
Oh, and then it just kind of holds and just sits there in case you need it. And then we talked about the different ways that you could have distribution of it. if you don't
Exactly.
use it.
So I'll give you an example. I just recently ran and I can't show you the illustration because the client's name's on it, but I'll just kind of give you an example of this hybrid long-term care policy with the 3 buckets, what it looks like. So this client's 62 years old, really good health. He wanted me to run quotes for 5 years of payments, right, at that age, with a death benefit amount of the amount of money that he pays in for the premium. So basically he would pay about $11,000 a year for 5 years. So paying in about $55,000 of premium, right? Never makes another payment. He's done. If he decides in 6 years he wants to surrender the policy, he'll get 70% of that policy premium back. If he decides to wait and if he might use it. So what happens is we compound based on inflation, a 3% compounded rate. We can also run it at 5%. It's a little bit more expensive, but for today's purposes, we'll just leave it at 3. At 81, let's say he has a long-term care event at 81, he's 62 now. The bucket of money that he would have available for him, he paid in $55,000. He would have about $214,000 worth of money to use, right, for his long-term care. So it ends up being about $3,300 a month he would use to be able to pay and supplement his other guaranteed sources of income to pay for long-term care if he needed it. So to answer your question, premiums do not go up over time. It's a set premium for a defined amount of time, whether it's one lump sum, 5 years, 10 years, you never pay it again. And then you've got a bucket of money to pull from as you age. And of course, the longer you wait to use it, the more money you'll have to use because of inflation.
Well, gosh, it just seems like a win-win now. Seems so
Yeah.
much better than it used to be.
It is.
We haven't really talked about what the cost is for senior living and in-home care. You want to just kind of throw out some figures so people have an idea? So John, somebody is staying at home. They want to have somebody come into the home to help take care of their activities of daily living. How much would they pay per hour for that kind of care?
So most of the time when you're talking about the activities of daily living, you're talking about, home health, home care. Usually it's a 4-hour window. They usually require 4 hours. And it's about $25 an hour right now. There are some scenarios where if somebody needs help with a med management or injections and things like that, you could see it going as high as $50 an hour. It just depends on what type of care you're looking for. But if we're looking for just standby assist for bathing, or, I need someone to help meal prep or grocery shop. Right now, the going rate is about $25 an hour. And that's using an agency, but there's also ways that you can get that cost a little bit lower as well. Go ahead.
For a senior apartment, so when we talk about senior apartments, of course, there's no meals or things like that. About how much would that be per month for somebody if they wanted to live in a, let's say, a
Oh.
2-bedroom senior apartment?
So, most, probably 80 or 75% of the senior apartments are income subsidized, income, based. So, for those, that's all based on your income, and you have to be on some form of subsidized, you have to qualify for subsidized housing. If they're not subsidized, you're probably looking at about $1,800 a month for a 2-bedroom. Now, most of the senior apartments do also include, some form of electric, water, gas, cable, that kind of stuff. So it's not just, just the rent is $1,600, let's say.
And then if you look at independent living, which typically they're going to have meals and they'll have transportation and their utilities would be included, how much about on average?
And that's where we start getting into, there's just so much out there. The range for independent living in Central Texas is 1,600 to 8,000 or 9,000, depending on the square footage. Do you want cottages? Do you want garages? Do you want 2 bedrooms? Do you want 2 bedrooms and a study? Do you want a 1-bedroom? So, median price for independent living is probably around 3, but it depends also where you're at, what part of town. As you know, there's not a lot of true senior living in Austin. It's all around Austin. So,
Yeah, because they go to the less expensive places where land is.
well, no, I think more than anything, it's the aging, so, Austin is a young, eclectic, college town. And so land prices have always been in Austin much more expensive. So it's easier and cheaper to build on the outskirts of town. And that's the way Austin grew, right?
Right.
90% of the people think Round Rock is part of Austin, but it's not, right? So I think, it's just the way it grew. Most of the in Austin proper is skilled nursing, but there are a few assisted living and residential care homes and things like that.
So how much would assisted living be for a person then? And I know we're just talking just on average.
I mean, average between, again, depending on how far and wide you're willing to go, we can find assisted living for as low as 1,500, 2,000, all the way to 10 or 15,000. It just depends. First on the care and where. But on average, it's about 4,000, I would say, is the average. But then, if you got 2 bedrooms and you got 3 cats or 2 cats or dogs, or, you want a garage, everything kind of starts, changing those numbers.
Yeah, kind of snowballing, adding on to the total price. Well, for memory care, I know, again, just in general, about how much would it be for memory care?
Memory care is more expensive, but it also 90% of the time is what we call all inclusive. And that is because it's a very structured environment. So memory care is usually in that $5,000 range. But again, it just all depends on where.
And then when we talk about CCRC, can you explain a little bit about their financials and how that works? Because I know that's different from other communities.
So a regular senior living community, most of them, you pay a community fee or an entrance fee or a reservation fee up front. And the reason being is when you lease an apartment or a home, you always have the turnover cost, right? But that's kind of factored into the long-term cost of the lease. So you lease an apartment for a year, and if it's going to cost $700 to turn it, they just add that $700 and that adds to the cost each month. In senior living, it's all month to month. So there is a community fee. It's usually a one-time fee. That's for them to turn over the apartment or turn over the residence. And if it's an assisted living, that's to do care plans and things like that. Okay. In a life plan community, it's a totally different scenario. So in a regular senior living, you're month to month. If you don't like it, you turn in your 30-day notice and go. In a life plan community, they're actually going to make a commitment to you for life, and you're going to make a commitment to them for life. So in those communities, it's a little bit more of interviewing up front, finding out about finances, finding out about care, finding out about health, long-term health, because they're going to commit to take care of you for the rest of your life. And so there is a much heftier entrance price. Usually it depends on, again, the size of the apartment or home you choose. So if it's a 2-bedroom, it could be 300,000. It could be I've seen some for $1 million, but they do have where that money at your passing will go back to your heirs, but they've also got that money there so that they can make sure they can take care of you for life. So a life plan community has independent living, assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing all on one premise. And so as you need those different levels of care, you just move within the community. So if you had a life event, maybe you were living in the independent living, you would go to the hospital, you had the surgery, you come back, you go to the skilled nursing, you do the rehab. They still think you need a little bit more care. They say, let's go over to the assisted living for a month. Okay, now you're stronger. You can go back to your independent living apartment. It's all there in one building. So, or one compound. So you have all that flexibility, but at the same time, you are tied in to that community for life. So it is a big deal. Most people who move into a life plan or a CCRC type community, they do it quite young, usually in their 50s and 60s, because you do need to be independent for at least 3 years usually before needing care. Once you need care, that kind of changes some of your options and how it works.
Mhm. So as I have heard this before, that you really do want to get in while you're still healthy, because then you would be able to be covered under their program. And I've seen it where spouses, one is covered, one is not. The one not covered, then they have to just pay out of pocket, and it's costly.
Yeah.
So the sooner that you do make that commitment, the better off that you could be. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's that way with all senior living. I mean, I talk to a lot of families. Like after this, I'll be meeting with a family at their home. We're going to talk about the different types of senior living and making a plan going forward. People who do that and have a plan before they ever have a life event usually save money along the journey.
Yes.
People who call us and they need to figure everything out within the next 5 days because mom's discharging from a hospital, it's going to be more costly. And so, it's all about having that plan in place, having that budget and that kind of stuff. So again, this afternoon at 4 o'clock, I'm touring with a family and they have to have a place by Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's a life event that is incurred.
I know we have a lot of people who participate in our webinars and who participated in our in-person too, who are planners and who are trying to make the best decisions both for themselves and to make things easier for their families. So Landry, you probably see a lot of people who are planning to, isn't it a good idea to come tour now before you actually need to have a community? And how are tours happening right now with COVID?
Yeah, we always encourage, families and residents to tour earlier. It's better to do it sooner than later because we never know when a crisis could occur. So you never know when that true need is going to happen. So really, I always tell residents, it'll give you peace of mind just knowing that you did your research, you looked into the communities, so you're confident when your family has to make that decision that you've done your research, you know where you want to go. That way it takes not only the stress off of that crisis that's happening, but also the stress off of your loved one that's trying to find that solution for you. And yeah, so things are changing. We just take it day by day with COVID. So
if we wanted to come tour today, what would you tell us? Could we come tour, or how would that work?
Yeah, so right now we're asking, everybody just to kind of schedule the tour in advance. That way we can go over all the protocols for visitation, make sure they understand the screening process, the mask requirements and everything. So, but again, everything changes day by day. So that's what I would say, always reach out, see where we are at today.
Boy, we have sure learned how to be flexible and nimble, haven't we, during COVID?
Yes.
Okay, this is a great question. When would you start saving for long-term care to stay in your own home? And what is the monthly cost if the skills are just preparing meals, going to the grocery store, and basic cleaning? So you want to take that, Chantel?
Yeah, so I always say it's never too early to start planning for long-term care. I mean, our recommendation is at least by the age of 55 to start planning for that. But I also recommend for clients, if they are a little older, and maybe not in that age range of long-term care, is really to try to save at least 3 to 4 years, kind of budget that in an emergency cash fund potentially, to be able to fund your long-term care, and whether it's in very conservative investments, because interest rates are pretty terrible right now. So again, we just kind of look at each individual situation specifically, and then kind of make some decisions from there. But what we recommend, as for the cost of kind of aging in place from your home, I think it's all going to depend, to John's point, what you need. If you need full-time care in your home, I mean, you could potentially be looking at up to $100,000 a year in spends. If you just need someone 3 days a week, or someone to just come in and cook or clean for you, you could obviously get away with a substantially, lower amount of payment for that. So it just depends on the level of need and what that is. So
And the thing is, we don't know.
we don't
You
know.
don't know till you're there, and then you're like, okay, this is where I am. This is what I need. Because
Exactly.
I guess that's the beauty of life, and kind of the negative too, is that we kind of anticipate what could go on, but you really just don't know.
And we
So,
look at what we can control. We can't control the increasing cost of healthcare or, long-term care, but what we can control is how we plan for it. And everybody's plan is different.
mhm. This is a great question. It says, what's the best place resources to check quality of care, management, et cetera, for all the levels of the care facilities? And John, I'm going to have you answer that one.
For the state mandated, like nursing homes and hospitals, the HHS website does have a link where you can see all of their quote unquote scores from different inspections and things like that. So you would start at the HHS website. For senior living, for actual true assisted living, they do have some of the information on there. But mostly it's going to be, Google reviews and things like that, word of mouth. That's why it's so critical to tour. I have a lot of families when they do tour, and I'm sure Landria has as well, that they ask for letters of recommendation, and they actually talk to families that have lived there to get an idea of like, okay, what's it going to be like when mom and dad are living there, and, get some real true testimonials. And getting to know other residents. So, I mean, really the HHS website is really going to be the only other place to get any kind of thing like that. And I would honestly say that, if you're looking at Yelp reviews, Google reviews, and all those kind of things, understand that you've got to take them with a grain of salt. Senior living is about someone's life. And no one person has a perfect scenario. You do see a lot of people make very rash decisions in the senior industry and then send out horrible reviews because, what their expectation was not what was offered. I hate to say it, but you might have somebody who thinks they're moving into an assisted living, that there's going to be a caregiver sitting right next to dad 24 hours a day. And so they move into the community real quick, and then they start sending in these horrible Google reviews or, Facebook reviews. And, at no point did they understand that that is not what this community can do. So it really is important for us to talk to people, understand what their care looks like. What are their expectations? If you're going to be at home and you want that one-on-one care, okay, well, this is what it's going to cost. This is how much it's going to look. You know, there's everything is out there. You've just got to figure it all out. But, you know, Google reviews and things like that are really, really hard to, you know, to judge a community. You really have to go in, see them, see the residents. Are they happy? Talk to residents, talk to other family members. That really is the best way.
Yeah, it seems like on the Google reviews, it's always the person who's not happy. Very rarely do you get like a, we love it there, because they love it there, so they don't even think about going there. But one thing that we have been offering is bus tours, and we've got a bus tour coming up in September, October, and November. And when we go on our bus tour, we're going to be going to 3 different communities each time that we go. Landry will be on one of those, and they're going to be providing lunch. We did this before, and when we had lunch, we had one of the people, I think we had 2 people actually who lived at the community, and they came and they answered any question that our bus tour people had. So there was a lot of questions, and they were very forthcoming. It was probably the best tour that we ever had, just because we had an actual resident who they were honest. You know, they just told it like it was. They loved it there, of course. But it turned out to be a great thing. Hey, there's a question here. It says, do any of you know how the new infrastructure bill will affect paying for senior care? And I think what Joan might be alluding to, and John, you're already nodding your head, so you go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the infrastructure bill, but to be honest, I haven't seen anything specific about senior living. There does appear to be some things that they're going to, again, impact skilled nursing, but I haven't seen, and Landry, if you haven't, I haven't seen anything that's going to impact true senior living or home care. There was talk of, you know, putting together a plan for more home care, but I haven't been able to get through the bill, and I haven't seen anybody that's put anything in the bill that it's still in there.
Yeah, I think I had spoken to a companion care company where they were talking about the potential for companion care to be paid for through a bill, which would be phenomenal if that happened. But I can't even imagine how many billions of dollars that will cost us, because so many people need it.
And that's one of the reasons that right now, you know, the activities of daily living and med management and dementia or Alzheimer's, that Medicare just says we don't even acknowledge it, because you're talking about trillions of dollars a year.
Let's talk about, this isn't on our topic, but hospice just real quick, because hospice is actually paid for through Medicaid, right?
And Medicare. No,
And
Medicare.
Medicare. And a lot of people don't take advantage of hospice early enough, but there are many features within hospice that will help pay for care and really help caregivers out quite a bit.
So you have covered by Medicare, you have either the home health, which is the physical therapy, the occupational therapy, the speech therapy, nurse oversight, usually after a health event. What most people don't understand with home health is you have unlimited days. You can order it multiple times throughout the year to have them come out and work with mom or dad. And it's funny, people think, well, dad's fine, he doesn't need it, but he has some cognitive impairment. He's got some dementia or Alzheimer's. That is so critical. That exercise is so critical to maintaining where they're at. So I always say, use as much home health as you can. Once you've been diagnosed with any form of a critical diagnosis, you know, cancer or something like that, or heart disease or something, if it's life-threatening or, you know, anything like that, then you can either move to palliative care or hospice. That is 100% covered, just like home health. And hospice is all about comfort care. What you have to remember, though, is when you're on hospice, you can't get home health. So if you want dad to continue to do physical therapy, you can't be on hospice. It's got to be that point where dad doesn't want to do physical therapy anymore. He just can't follow the directions or something like that. So hospice is great because, number one, you've got a range of DME products that will be provided. Number two, you've got nurse oversight. Number three, you've got comfort care. So they're going to make sure that person is comfortable all the time. And they're going to make sure that, you know, that they're not stressing the individual. Okay. Just about quality of life. then they'll cover all the incontinence supplies. So that's a big burden for some people, especially when they're starting to deal with certain types of diagnoses. So, and then you have a physician. So another thing you have to remember between home health and hospice is when you're on home health, you still have your own primary care physician and all that. When you move to hospice, their physician becomes your primary care physician.
Oh,
So there's pluses and minuses. You always got to look at both, at everything.
mhm. I just know that it's helped so many families that I know, both in the cost, like you said, just incontinence alone. I mean, that could be $100, couple $100 a month.
$100 a month is
Yeah.
not, especially also for those people who are on hospice, you can get a 5-day respite every quarter. So you get a 5-day respite in a skilled nursing environment. Okay. So it is a nursing home environment, but you can get one of those every quarter. So if you're taking care of your loved one at home and you become exhausted, you say, I need a respite, they'll move them into the skilled nursing for 5 to 7 days. And then they'll bring them back home, give you a chance to catch your breath. That's another one of those benefits that are underused.
Mhm. And then a lot of the different hospices have different, kind of themes, like some will have musicians, some will have massage, they have different strategies to help people with their comfort care. And you can choose who you want your hospice company to be. You do not have to take the recommendation of
Correct.
whomever. Landria, can people have hospice at the Belmont? If somebody's on hospice care, can the hospice caregivers come into Belmont and can people receive that care?
Yes, that's correct. It can be on hospice care here. It's just an ancillary support for end of life, both for the resident and for the family. And again, it's just resident choice. So we can partner with any hospice entity.
I think people have a fear of if they move into a community and then they are in the end stage of life that they have the potential of being kicked out or something. And that just is not the case. It's your home. And so the communities want you to be able to remain in your home, as long as possible. So we've got, is companion care a specific service, like a one-on-one family substitute? So I always say companion care. What's the term that you use, John?
Sorry, I was muted. We usually say either home care or personal care.
Okay.
There's also companions. So the big question is there, and again, there's so much lingo in the senior industry. Is this person a licensed certified nurse's assistant? Are they a CNA or are they a companion? Somebody that just comes around and helps. So some people have friends that are companions that'll come over and do dishes and help them tidy up the house. That's a companion. You just have to be careful because once you start needing help with actual care, I have a lot of churches that'll reach out and they'll offer companion services. They'll help their parishioners with dress, meals or transportation. But once you start getting to care, dressing, bathing, transferring, incontinence, those kind of things, you really need to have the right type of person. You also have to understand that bringing in a companion or a friend to do care can put you at a financial risk. So if you bring in a friend of a friend and they're helping dad into the shower and they throw out their back, it's on your property, it's your accident, it's your responsibility. So there's a lot there. There's, some people are just like, I'm just going to hire Rosie down the street. I'm like, okay, well, what happens if Rosie becomes your full-time employee? Can you afford that? Yeah.
Those are great things to talk about. Let's see. Somebody asked if a copy of this webinar will be available later. Yes, we put it on our YouTube channel and you'll get an email later with a link to it. And let me go back to the question and answer. Gosh, guys, we've covered so much. Is there anything that I failed to ask or that you want to add based on our conversation for today?
I'll let Andrea and Chanel go first.
I don't think
Andrew,
there's
say-
any-
Yeah, I was like, I
gonna
don't have
say-
anything to add. Thank you.
I don't either. I want to thank you, Cindy, so much for putting this together. And It's such, I mean, I learned from you guys so much. And John, I'll probably call you after the seminar. I have a client I want to talk to you about, um, but thanks again for having us, and thanks everybody for attending. And if we can be of assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Chantel. John, what would you like to say?
Well, I was just going to say, if you don't know what you need, or you are interested in looking at what senior living is, I mean, definitely go see Landria at Beaumont. It is got a very unique situation in that it is independent living, assisted living, and memory care. The biggie there is for independent living and assisted living, you don't have to move. So we were talking earlier about how you move from different parts of a complex in a CCRC. Landria is one of the few communities that, you pick a 2-bedroom and then down the road you need care. They just add it right in. You don't have to move to another part of the building. And so that really makes it, a really nice feature for families that they don't know they don't have to move ever again. And going back to your comment about, if they have to move because the care continues to go up, there's a couple of scenarios. Like when you talk about hospice, if you're on hospice, often you don't have to move again if the hospice company is coming in consistently. But again, if you're in an independent living and it's not like Landria's building where they also have assisted living and you can't exit the building, then yes, you will have to move again to assisted living. Or if it gets to the point where your care gets so high that you can't get yourself out of the building, then that's that type B. Luckily, Landria's building is all that. And so, yeah, and then Chantel's is awesome with long-term care. Yes, I'll be calling you as well, because I think I have some families that we need your help with.
Yes. Well, I just learned so much. Thank you guys so much. We'll look forward to seeing you on the webinar series next month. We do have a paper shred day. That's one of the things that LT Senior Services offers, because we know that a lot of people right now are going through their closets, getting rid of their papers. That's going to be on October 20th. It's going to be at Barker Keats Lakeway Aquatic Center right there in the driveway. We hope to see you all there. We've got the Aging Wellness Expo coming up. And thank you again, panelists, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.